Hey, Twins fans, Derek Wetmore here from 1500 ESPN. I'm the senior editor. I write about the Twins, and I do some podcast stuff. If you already knew that, sorry for the introduction. A lot of people here don't know me. Apparently, too, there was a rumor that I'd been fired. I want to put that to rest. I was on vacation last week, so that's why you haven't seen the Touch 'Em All podcast. That's why we didn't do this video. Anyways, sorry if that's disappointing. I'm sure there are some people out here that were rooting for that. Let me share a link with my Twitter friends, but after that, we are going to get into this video, and it's just a live question and answer session. If you have any Twins questions, you drop them in the comments down there. I'm recording this on my cell phone, so I will see them, and I'll get to as many of those as I can today before I have to go into the office. Working from the home office today. I'm trying to think what else we've got to get to in this video. I'll talk about Miguel Sano because I just published a column on him, my first day back on the job yesterday. We'll talk about his defense. If you've got any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer it based on personal observations, an interview with Miguel Sano, an interview with one of his coaches who's working with him on infield defense, all that kind of good stuff. We can get to that in this video, but I'd rather answer the questions that you guys care about, not what I think you might care about. So, yeah, if there's anything that I haven't hit on or that you're curious about, just let me know. Let me send this link out, and then we'll get right to it. I already see a question in there, so that is good news. We won't have to start with my filibuster on Miguel Sano. I'll answer Drew's question here first. We can get into Miguel Sano later if you guys want to. How about a little link? Okay, cool. We should be ready to roll. I'm going to share that with the 1500 crew. And now, yes. So, Twins question and answer session begins with Drew, who asks, how do you see the Mejia-Duffy Derby for the 5th starter spot shaking out? Well, I have to be honest. I missed about a week of the developments of this derby, and so not to say that I'm surprised with the way things have shaken out, but first I'll just answer. I'll say I think Mejia is the better long-term answer, but let me take a step back from that quickly and just say that while I was on vacation, a lot of things kind of went down, and it's crazy. You pay attention to all of spring training and you think oh, nothing ever happens. News moves really slowly, and day to day there just aren't a lot of developments. You get down to the end of camp and they just make some decisions, and it becomes fairly obvious, I guess. But the Trevor May injury was surprising to me, obviously. That really hurts the Twins. Tommy John surgery knocks him out for the full 2017 season. I thought he was going to be one of their better starters. People wrote in the comment section on our website, who cares? They lost a guy who might have been the 5th starter. And I think it's disingenuous of the Twins to consider him sort of the 5th starter candidate, while guys like, Phil Hughes, Hector Santiago, Kyle Gibson are, guaranteed a job. Granted, those guys have done more. They've got a longer track record. I kind of felt like May was going to be better than that group. And maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm just being far too optimistic on May. But to me, that was his upside, was kind of being a mid-rotation starter for the Twins. And it's a rotation that doesn't have a lot of mid-rotation quality guys. I mean, they're sort of a group of back-end starters trying to jockey for position is the way that I view it. And so Mejia, you could throw into that group too. He's probably a back-end starter, a number 4, number 5 starter. And that's the role he's competing for. So I think he eventually wins the job. I think Tyler Duffy. I saw my pal Pat Royce tweet yesterday that Duffy would not go to the bullpen if he doesn't make the rotation. He'll go to AAA. And I kind of agree with that. I think it's possible his fastball-curveball combination would play well in the bullpen. But how many starters are the Twins going to use this year? 9 or 10? 11? I don't think you want to pull the plug on guys being starting pitchers just because you think he might be a better guy as a reliever. Maybe it's true with Duffy, and maybe that's where it ends up going, but if he doesn't make the starting rotation, I'd put him in Rochester. Rochester's rotation has a chance to be pretty good. Not that that's what you should be gunning for if you're the Twins, but keep in mind what that signifies, and that's that you actually have some decent starting pitching depth. So what the Twins lack in sort of top-end talent, Ervin Santana's their best pitcher, and he's probably a mid-rotation starter on a good team. They do sort of make up for it by having a lot of numbers 4 and 5 starters, whatever that's worth. So yeah, it's not nothing. Let me see. This is going to be hard to read on my phone. I'm not going to try that. I'll just go over to the tab here. We'll read it on Facebook. And is this light distracting to anybody? I was just looking in the camera now, and I realized that it's kind of like right on my head, like I'm some kind of, divine being giving you Twins knowledge from on high. I'm going to see what it looks like without. Now I'm kind of in a dungeon. That suits my liking a little bit more. Let me know if it gets distracting. Just somebody drop a comment. Let me get to some more questions here. Kyle asks, if Mauer is steady, but the team is struggling, any chance he's traded? No, Kyle. He has a full no-trade clause. I can't even imagine a scenario in which the Twins approach him about that. And if they did approach him about that, I can't imagine what he'd say. Like, what's the upside in it for Mauer for uprooting his life and getting traded somewhere else where a whole nother group of fans can turn on him for being a light-hitting first baseman making $23 million? In short, I don't see it. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm being the naive one, but probably not. I'm the non-zero chance guy, too, and I don't even know if I'd go that far in this case, so take that for what it's worth. Craig, I'll get to your question, but let me first have a sip of my morning medicine. Craig Hagen asks, and sorry if I'm screwing up your name, Craig. This is my first try. He says, Rosario, Buxton, and Kepler, mainly the full-time outfield? Yeah, I think so. Robbie Grossman got hurt the other day, and it was pretty clear that the Twins weren't considering him as a starting left fielder anyways. Maybe that makes some sense. He was so bad in left field last year. But from people I talked to, they're kind of hoping that he can correct that this season. I've got a column at some point that I have to write on Robbie Grossman, just about, take his offensive season last year with a grain of salt. Obviously, it was a career year for him, but it was a great season, and I don't think we should dismiss it as, well, he just got hot, and the final numbers look great because he got hot. It's like, yeah, but it happened. The point is that he still had a partial season worth of plate appearances in which he was the best Twins hitter at getting on base. I'm not saying he was the best Twins hitter, but and in terms of on-base percentage, Robbie Grossman was excellent last year, and I think that's especially true from the right side of the plate. When you've got Robbie Grossman starting against a lefty, I think you could do much, much worse offensively than that. So if I'm the Twins, I'd look to maximize his exposure against lefties. Like, if he's going to play, 200 plate appearances, let's just call it 200, I'd try to make as many of those against left-handed pitchers as possible, and I don't know how they work that out. Maybe he's a fourth outfielder and he platoons with Rosario or something, but it sounds like the Twins are not too keen on the whole platoon idea with guys like Eddie Rosario and definitely with Max Kepler. So we'll see how it all shakes out, but like Craig, to answer your question, I don't really see a lot of quality outfield options. When Danny Santana has a chance to make your team as a utility guy because of his outfield play, I think it says something about your team. So the Twins have a ways to go in terms of depth, but if Buxton does break out this season, and if Kepler's the guy who I think he can be, that's a really solid starting place for a young outfield. If you're curious, Craig, I wrote, not to get all self-promotional here, I did write a piece about Max Kepler possibly being underrated as an outfielder. You can find that, just go to our Twins page on 1500ESPN.com, or maybe you can search like Max Kepler underrated 1500ESPN. But I just talk about how his defense, we might have been selling him short on that side of the game. So it's a good question, Craig, and I think the answer is yes. I think that that will be your primary outfield for 2017. K-Watt asks, no, and it's pathetic that such a highly regarded prospect is going to be a DH at 25. Miguel Sano. Oh, okay. He's asked. So the question I asked in the post here is: do you think Miguel Sano is an everyday third baseman? Kevin Watterson says no, and it's pathetic that such a highly regarded prospect is going to be a DH at age 25. Well, keep in mind that you're the one saying that it's not going to work. So let's. To me, we're all putting the cart before the horse, and I know my buddy Judd Zulgad is on that bandwagon too. That says, no way, never going to work. 0% chance he's a third baseman. You might as well move him to first base right now, or DH or whatever. I think if you're the Twins, what's the rush? What's the rush to make that decision? Are you worried about your World Series contention in 2017? I wouldn't be. I think that you've got to figure out what you have this season. And if what you have is a first baseman DH in Miguel Sano, that's disappointing. I'll grant that, for sure, Kevin, if you end up being right. And by the way, I'm not taking the opposite stance. I'm not saying he's for sure a third baseman. Definitely he's a third baseman. But I'm saying there's a possibility. And if Miguel Sano is anything approaching a league average third baseman, or even a little bit better, which Gene Glenn thinks he will be. Gene Glenn is the infield coach I alluded to earlier that's been working with Sano. And worked with Trevor Plouffe. And he thinks that Miguel Sano will be an all-star third baseman. Now, obviously most of that's probably because of his bat. He's going to hit a lot. But if you have a guy who hits 35 home runs and plays okay defense at third base, this is like a star player. And so to be so down on Sano, I don't get why that's so trendy. Miguel Sano might be their best player. So I don't know why everyone's sort of dogging on him. It seems like a really popular thing to pick on. I saw a columnist pick on him because he's not a leader the other day because he likes to be on his cell phone. I just don't get why he's become such a popular person to skewer for not being a good player. He might be their best player as early as this year. So we'll see how Buxton pans out. We'll see how Kepler pans out. Obviously, we'll wait and see how Sano pans out, especially at third base. But writing him off right now seems kind of silly to me. I'm going to go back to the light if you guys don't mind. It seems kind of weird doing this in the dark, even though it's probably my more natural habitat. There we go. Okay, so it was just the camera thing that wasn't adjusted. Jairus asks, how short is Kinsler's leash as closer? Would much rather see Presley there. Yeah, I mean, look, I'll tell you the quick story. Actually, I'll just tell you the summary, is that people with sports teams, and managers are no different, coaches in the NBA are no different, NFL head coach, they hate the term leash. How long is this guy's leash? It's I'm not saying it's offensive or derogatory. It's just I don't think it really paints the picture. So if I could change your question just a little bit, Jairus, how do you expect Kinsler to do in the closer's role in Glenn Perkins' absence? Because Glenn Perkins is not starting the season on the team. He is going to be on the DL for sure. In his absence, Brandon Kinsler is probably the closer. He acquitted himself well in that role, last year. But I also wrote on 1500ESPN.com, it's part of my season preview, I don't see it being a real sustainable model of success. I think Kinsler could be a nice reliever for them, but nice in the seventh inning guy get a ground ball double play, not in the closer for a team that has aspirations to contend. So that's no knock on Kinsler. I think it was a great story last year, and it probably continues to be, but it's hard for me to see someone striking out, 5 batters per 9 innings and really thriving in that role long term. So maybe if I rephrase your question, how do you expect Kinsler to do in the closer's role, and who's next, and how soon could it happen? Well, if that's the question, I think Kinsler will be so-so in the closer's role, but I don't think the Twins are going to be in a situation like they were last year, where they really expected to contend, and Kevin Jepsen just blew so many games for him early that it was a real problem. When they could have won 4 or 5 more games if they just had a regular reliever in But instead, Kevin Jepsen, his performance eroded, and he was also bit by some pretty bad luck. Blowing games that early in the season, I think, really did affect the outcome of the year. It has obviously affected the outcome of Jepsen's year. He was DFA'd. But I don't know how quickly that, plug would be pulled if you're the Twins. Like, unless Presley's really, really lighting it up, and I think he'll start the season as the setup guy. He's your eighth inning guy in my book. If that happens, like, would it be shocking to see a change made by June? No, not for me anyways. But that's a lot of ifs. We're kind of getting really far ahead of ourselves with that. If Kinsler struggles, if the Twins are really competitive and give him a lot of chances that he just blows, and if Presley is dominant, well, yeah, then a switch will be made. But I don't know that we can really project that out. Like, I think it's maybe too early to say all that stuff's for sure going to happen. So I don't know if that really answers your question. But that's my best shot. Okay, thanks for the question, Jairus. Robert Nelson asks, feeling any better about Polanco at shortstop? Keep in mind, I haven't watched games since I got back. I've only seen one game televised since I got back from Fort Myers. But in my time in Fort Myers, honestly, no. Like, I think it could work out for him. I still think there's that non-zero chance, but like, he just wasn't that impressive to me in shortstop. Now, granted, he didn't get a lot of opportunities, so I'm basing it on an incredibly small sample size, and there are going to be people that know way more about this than me, people that have watched him play every game, every inning, and every backfield drill in spring training. I just haven't watched that. So I'm just being honest, full disclosure. I haven't seen the 100% Jorge Polanco sample of shortstop defense, but what I saw, not that encouraging. I think you still go with him throughout 2017, but he just, he doesn't look like he'll ever be a good shortstop. Maybe he's a passable shortstop, and if that's the case, maybe you take that because his bat is so good for the position. So I don't know if that answers your question. I'm sure it doesn't inspire any confidence, but that's kind of the way I see Polanco. I think I might be more. This would be an interesting question. I'm curious what you guys think. Let me know in the comments here, or like on my Facebook page, Derek Wetmore MLB. Are you more confident that Sano is a decent third baseman long term, or are you more confident that Jorge Polanco is a decent shortstop? Like, which is more likely to pan out at his current position? I don't know my answer. And it's possible that I'm just being too rose-colored glasses about Sano to even ask the question, but I don't know. I'd be curious what you guys think. Let me know if it's on Facebook or Twitter or this comment section. Yeah, I think I might do. There might be a column in there somewhere someday. Tom Holt asks, if you had one player to trade, who would it be? I assume I'll make a couple assumptions here. Assume you're talking about the Twins, and I assume you're talking about trading somebody like now or at the trade deadline to try and improve the future. And if that's the case, good question. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it, to be honest, but I don't like the trades. I get a lot of questions about fringe guys, what could we get if we traded so-and-so? And it's like Kenny Vargas or something. And that's fine. Maybe somebody would give up something for Kenny Vargas, but you wouldn't be excited about the return. You wouldn't be excited about the return for a Byung Ho Park. I mean, obviously, other teams didn't want him for free at the start of spring training. So if you're looking for a good return, and we're talking about realistic because Brian Dozier, we saw, obviously, limited market, and what market there was, the Twins weren't willing to make a swing at a trade like that for the price being offered. Probably Irvin Santana. It's a long way to answer your question, but Irvin Santana's the best upside return. I mean, starting pitchers are getting paid tons of money these days, and by comparison, Irvin Santana has a decent contract. But what you're looking for when you trade a player, it's surplus value. Like, what's his contract paying him, and how much more is he worth than what that contract is paying? Like, Miguel Sano would be a huge trade get, right? Because people are like, oh, he's putting up these numbers, and some team is going to believe in his defense, and he's making, what, $500,000 or whatever it is. So guys like that, guys like Byron Buxton, Max Kepler, those are going to be huge trade returns relative to their more veteran peers. Like, you're not going to get a lot if you trade Hector Santiago. The Angels kind of did last year, but I think if you're the Twins now, that's not going to happen. So, I don't know. I'd trade Ervin Santana. I wouldn't be opposed to that idea this summer either. If the Twins get off to a rocky start and they're clearly sellers and Ervin's having himself a nice year, yeah, I'd make that trade. I think that you're going to address your pitching down the line. But Tom, maybe the better answer is like the Twins don't have a lot of like great trade chips, at least right now. If you decide you don't like the future of an Eddie Rosario and you want to trade him and some team likes what they see, okay, that's interesting to me. Or Jorge Polanco, throw him in that same boat. But I think if you haven't traded those guys by now, you're kind of looking at them as a part of the future, as a part of the core. Or if they don't work out, then you're selling them for pennies on the dollars down the road. But yeah, I don't know if that really answers your question, Tom. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Ervin Santana trade. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Brandon Kinsler trade or a Matt Belisle trade or Kenny Vargas trade or something like that. I mean, I don't know. I'm purely speculating here because it's not like I'm talking to other teams' GMs and saying, hey, who's the most interesting on the Twins? But a guy, too, that was getting some calls last year, I heard, but the Twins didn't trade him, and I thought he should have earned a spot in the bullpen coming into spring training, but it sounds like he had to work through spring training to earn it. Taylor Rogers, teams would be interested in him, but we'll see if the Twins are in wheeling and dealing mode or if they're just kind of trying to fix. I don't think the Twins, besides Santana, should really be looking to trade too much pitching because they kind of need all the help that they can get in that area. But yeah, I don't really see a lot of position players that make a ton of sense. Let me refresh this page and I'll get to the next question. Thank you. Thanks for dropping that one, Tom. I appreciate it. Let's see. It's been said Park has the lead as far as DH. Vargas has shown nothing. Will Park come north? I don't know. Who knows? But it's not the Twins saying that. Keep in mind. It's us writers who are observing and talking to people, but like also just kind of like informed opinion. Park has shown a little something. Here's the difference. Kenny Vargas is on the roster and Park's not, so you'd have to make a move to get Park onto the team. Now, maybe you put Glenn Perkins on the 60-day disabled list and that frees up a spot. Maybe there's another 40-man spot that you think you can free up. Fine. And I'm not saying it's impossible. As my good friend Pat Royce would say, if you think there's a 40-man problem, give me a pencil. He'll quickly cross out some names to free up some spots. But I do think that would work against Park. I think you have to find a spot for him. It's just easier. It's the path of lesser resistance to have Vargas start as your opening day DH and Park in Rochester. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I know some other people have been impressed with Park. I've been mildly impressed with Park because here's the difference. I take spring training stats, I think, with more of a grain of salt. I look at them and I say, okay, here's what I think of the player coming into spring training. And that's 90% of what I think about the player at the end of spring training. I'll adjust it. If Danny Santana has an amazing spring and he shows the ability to steal bases, play good center field defense, make the right throws and reads in the outfield, and he shows some life with the bat, I'm willing to change my opinion on Danny Santana. But it's not like if somebody comes in and has a hot spring, Matt Tolbert hits 500 in spring training, suddenly I think he's going to win the Silver Slugger. I still think he's this player, and then we sort of adjust it over time kind of thing. So, long way of saying, I'm maybe not as high on Park as some other people have been, but if his signs of catching up to this big velocity and hitting for power and hitting for average are true, then yeah, you'd obviously want to have that guy as your DH. So, we'll wait and see. I don't think either of them is super appealing long term as a bat only slugger, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Park come north. Definitely not. Let's see. Jairus has another question. He says, heard a fun discussion on the Ringer MLB show. Who will have a higher 2017 WAR? Dozier or one of Kepler, Buxton, Sano? Well, if you are just playing the percentages, Jarris, I would say I'd always take the side with more volume to it. So I'm taking one of that trio, Kepler, Buxton, Sano. But if you're making me pick who will have the highest WAR, that's harder. Like ranking those four in order might be fun. And save this video. Whoever's watching this right now and is interested in this question and wants to make me look bad, save this video. Remember this for at the end of the season when it plays out completely the opposite of what I say here. And then you can be like, see, Wetmore knows nothing about the Twins. And I'll tip my cap to you and I will say, you are right. I'm just guessing just like the rest of us. Here's what I would think, though. Man, I'm really going to go out on a limb here. I don't know if I feel comfortable doing that, man. All right, I'm going to say what was in my head, but like I'm not gung-ho on this opinion. I think Buxton has the highest WAR of that group. I think he does. I think that his bat comes around. Now, he's not going to be the 290 hitter, that we saw. He's not the superstar that we saw in September. But I think that his combination of defense, I think his base running still has a ways to go, but he's so fast he can work on it. I think he's going to get some infield hits. I think he's going to hit for some power. I think that Byron Buxton could be the best player on the Twins as early as 2017. It's a huge leap because he could also be in Rochester by June. So, grant this, that I don't walk out on limbs very often, and this is a very unsteady limb for me to be standing on. But I think Buxton could have the highest WAR of that group. Dozier would be the easy pick because he's going to hit all of the home runs. But, his defensive component, I don't know that really adds anywhere near as much as Buxton does. I don't know. Call me crazy. Brian Dozier's going to have a good on-base percentage. He's going to hit some home runs. I'm not calling him a one-dimensional player by any means. But, I don't know. Could you see Dozier taking a small step backward this year and Buxton, roaring past? I don't know. I could see it. Looks like some people are interested in me being bold, so there you go. There's my bold prediction. Also, Kepler. Don't sleep on Kepler. I've been saying that all winter, but I feel like I can't say it enough. Drew says, small sample to be sure, but how concerned should the Twins be at Sano's huge strikeout percentage this spring? I think you answered the question in the first part of your question. It's a small sample size. Sano kind of treats spring training like he's getting ready for the season. He doesn't treat it like the World Series. So just knowing that, I know some people are, I heard some of my colleagues talking about he doesn't seem to be on the ball as much, or he's check swinging all the time, he's swinging and missing. This is going to happen with Sano, but I still like his power. I still like his balance in the plate, which is kind of a hard thing. You can't quantify it, but when you watch it, you kind of get it. That he just has this ability to never get out here, and he's never like this. Sano just has this, calm, easy, ferocious swing that I'm still buying on long term. He makes incredibly hard contact, and he's going to swing and miss. Yes, high strikeout rate is fine. He told me he wants to put the ball in play more this year and be more be able to hit for power to the opposite field, which he really can do. He said he wants to be more like a Miguel Cabrera hitter. And granted, you're comparing yourself to some pretty lofty guys, Miguel, but it shows his confidence and it shows the type of hitter I think he wants to kind of become, and the Twins are challenging him to become. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens, but personally, am I sweating or nervous that he's going to have a bad season because he struck out a lot in spring? No, I'm not. Brad asks, is Perkins' career over with injuries the last couple of years? It could be. I don't think it is. I think he'll pitch in the majors again, but I think you might not see him till the middle of summer, which is, it's a little disappointing. It's a little slower than maybe you expected, but no, I don't think his career's done. But there's some definite wonder about that, right? If he doesn't come back from this injury, he's at the age where, maybe you just call it quits. So I don't know how to answer that question because I don't know, but if you are asking me, do I think he'll pitch again for the Twins in the majors, I would say yes. What other options do the Twins have at third base? A-Ray Adrianza or Eduardo Escobar. Ugh, I don't like that option at third base. Maybe as a stopgap. But really, yeah, the Twins don't have a lot of options there. Maybe Polanco could play there, but if he doesn't have the arm for shortstop, you wonder if he has the arm for third base. Crazy, but maybe not crazy. What if Brian Dozier could play third base? That's like 10 steps away from happening, but I could see Brian Dozier as being a good or decent third baseman. He's got enough arm. It didn't work out as a shortstop, but I think he's been really pretty good with the glove at second base. So I don't know. I think if your question, Brad, is like if Sano fails at third base, I'd say let's let that happen first. Like I've been saying that kind of all winter. If he's going to fail, fine. Let him fail, go out there, and then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But for now, I think Sano's your third baseman. Let's see. Man, I really got to run, guys, but I will try to go rapid fire. Get to as many of these as I can. I see like 4 questions here, so... All right. Han asks, the Twins have named a new general manager, as we all know. Do you think it could affect Byung Ho Park's future on the team in the long term? Not really, no. It was Terry Ryan who won the bidding for Park, but I think Thad Levine and, keep in mind, Derek Falvey is going to be making a lot of the decisions too. Like they're kind of the two-headed monster replacing Terry Ryan. I think their view of Park reflects kind of what the industry thinks right now, which is interesting upside as a power hitter and concerning contact rate. Like, I don't know if he's going to make enough contact to succeed in the majors, but if he does, I think he has some really solid potential as a DH first baseman for the Twins. I think that if he improves his the contact rate, like the rate at which he makes contact, which is a big jump. I mean, I'm not saying it'll happen like that, but if it happens, he's going to hit for a lot of power in the big leagues, especially to straightaway center field where he's already shown that he has some pretty epic power. Now the question is going to be, is he going to be the kind of guy who can just punish bad pitching, or is he going to make an adjustment to really become a feared hitter where even if the pitcher is trying to expose a weakness, the Park's kind of shored up that part of his game. He's fixed the holes in his swing, as they say. I don't really like that phrase, but just as a general philosophy, if he misses too many big league pitches, it's hard for the power to really catch up and really make a huge difference over the course of a season. But I don't think that Thad Levine or Derek Falvey have closed the book on Park. I think just because they DFA'd him, that was more of like a roster manipulation move, the way I viewed it. I don't think that it would be a whole lot different if Terry Ryan was still running the show. So thanks for the question. Dan says, Wetmore, what's up? Just hanging out, drinking some coffee, talking Twins. Let's see. Yeah, some non-questions, I guess. When should we expect to see Buxton hitting in the top 5 in the lineup? Here's another bold call. You ready for it? Opening day. I think Buxton hits at near the top of the lineup. I don't know. Who knows, because the Twins are probably going to make some decisions based off spring training, which I said I'm kind of not. I'm not really that interested in making a final assessment, like some huge overarching assessment based on what a guy does in March. But, I don't know. You could do worse. I kind of scribbled out a couple of lineups. If you're curious, you can find them on our Twins page, or just Google, early thoughts on the lineup, 1500 ESPN, or something like that. I had Buxton batting leadoff, and that was kind of a limb that I was walking out on, so whatever. I'll double down on that limb now. Who will have the best walk-up music? I don't know, but I know who won't. Joe Mauer. I saw a tweet yesterday that he'll be using What You Know by T.I. again for the 56th straight season, and I'm quite done with it. I don't know. I always try to do a fun, all-star break story on ranking the walk-up music, so maybe I'll do that again this year. I'm trying to think whose I would have said last year. Well, Brandon Kinsler, maybe, although it's kind of corny. I don't know. Get back to me on that. That's a good question, Tyler, but I don't have the answer yet. Eric asks, how long until we can expect Barrios in the majors? Is it a matter of him getting stretched out before he comes up? Yes. Frankly, I wouldn't be shocked if you saw him as early as like May. Like him going to the minors, I'm guessing he'll go there and he'll dominate minor league hitters. And if he fixes the fastball command, like he can dominate them even if he doesn't fix that. But if he fixes that, he could be a really solid pitcher in the big leagues too, like a 2-3 kind of starter, in my opinion. So we'll see when he surfaces with the Twins, but I wouldn't take the fact that he was demoted to be like a huge blow to his career aspirations. It's just, frankly, he didn't pitch very many innings in the World Baseball Classic, and how are you going to trust a guy to go throw 100 pitches on the 5th day of the season if he's not stretched out? It's just math, I think. Kevin asks, is it realistic to see Tyler J by July out of the pen? I don't know what the move to the bullpen does to accelerate his timeline. I would assume so. I would assume it cuts like as many as 2 years of development time. I watched him pitch a minor league game this spring, and he looks like he's got 2 pitches that might be ready. He's got this big breaking ball that's just, and fastball. Obviously, you've heard about the fastball. I don't know when we'll see him, but I'm really curious as you are. I'll have to wait and see how he performs kind of coming out of the gate, but like that could be a potentially big weapon. Keep in mind, we've been saying that for a couple of years about a number of these big arms. Hey, this guy throws really hard and strikes out a ton of people. It should be awesome for the Twins. And so far, it hasn't been awesome. I mean, guys like JT Shagwa, throw Tyler J into this mix, Jake Reed, Mason Militakis. So far, those are just names. Like, they're just prospects right now. They don't have a lot of big league success on their track record. I still see, good things for a guy like Shagwa, for example, and maybe Militakis in time. But, like, kind of curious to see how it plays out. Big fastball and strikeout stuff, weirdly enough, as much as I'd like to think so, doesn't always seem to transfer for the Twins anyways to the big leagues. Maybe that trend busts this year and they start getting some high velocity, just fuel at the back end of their bullpen and striking guys out and changing the trend. We'll see. Holy smokes, a lot of questions just came in. I'm going to go seriously rapid fire because I got to run. I hate the 103 lost red jerseys. Okay. Dave Hansen also says, can you imagine Harmon in red? I haven't thought about it very much. Dave also says, love Wimmers, change and inside pitches. Okay, I haven't seen a lot of Wimmers this spring, but Royce put Wimmers in his theoretical bullpen the other day, so I'm curious to see this. Obviously, I didn't think like we saw much down the stretch last year, but who knows? I've been totally wrong before in the past, and I'd be willing to admit that is the case again if Wimmers makes the pen, because I didn't project him in my opening day projection, which I did what was that, a month ago? A month and a half ago? 6 weeks ago now? Jeez. I didn't have Wimmers in the bullpen, and it looks like I might be wrong there. Who knows? Jesse says, I'm really pulling for Byung Ho Park to be successful. Thoughts on his possibilities for 2017 if healthy? Is he going north to start the year? Jesse, I am not trying to be rude with this. I'm trying to be rapid fire. I talked about Park at length earlier in the video, so just like when this wraps up, go watch that part of it, because we did spend some time on Park. Brad also asks, will we see anything different than what has been the norm for the GM position, especially when it comes to the personnel decisions? I don't know what you mean by that, but keep in mind that Thad Levine's only been on the job for 4 months. So 5 months, I guess. I am in wait-and-see mode just like the rest of you guys. I don't know how Thad Levine's going to be as a GM. In talking to him, I think he's smart, but that doesn't mean anything, really. You can be a smart person and not a successful GM, just like Derek Falvey can be a smart person and not be a good leader of a front office. I don't know. We have to let it play out, but I think that if you give them, the full 2017 season to see how they make decisions, not only what decisions they make and how they work, but how they went about making those decisions, I think you might be pleasantly surprised. So, wait and see on Levine, wait and see on Falvey, wait and see on Miguel Sano at third base, wait and see on Byung Ho Park. It's that kind of season for the Twins. I'm not trying to be evasive with my answers. That's just what 2017 is to me. Jesse, no sweat on the Byung Ho Park. I just didn't, for the people who'd been here. I didn't want to rehash that stuff. So that's the end of my video. If you're not already on my Facebook page, go over there, Derek Wetmore MLB, and I'll answer questions there literally all week long. I only do Facebook Lives once a week usually. I do those on the 1500 ESPN page. But if you want to talk Twins, check out my page there. So, and go look, see if you can find my piece on Miguel Sano. I'd appreciate it if you gave that one a read too. I wrote that yesterday on his defense and why he might be a good third baseman. That's it for me for this video. Long-winded enough already. Thanks for coming by for the morning coffee Q&A, and I'll catch you guys next week.